Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Double 18 Podcast Live Stream Edition. I'm your host, Stephen Nagishi. Thanks for joining me on this loaded Monday schedule today. Thanks to Anthony Russo earlier this afternoon for joining me on the live stream. And joining us now is somebody that I've had a few years ago. You know him, and I'm very, very honored to have him on his very, very busy schedule working for the NFL Network. And I certainly could not have asked for a better guest on a day like this today, especially after what happened to the Chicago Bears. It is none other than Mr. Adam Rank. Adam, thank you for joining me today. And I think a lot of Bears fans, myself included, could not have asked for a better time to talk about what the heck happened yesterday in Detroit, where I happened to outside of 52-21 drumming. And so now that 24 hours have gone past, unfortunately, the things have kind of gone worse with Jalen Johnson looking at possibly missing the entire season with re-aggravating his groin injury and all of that. But what the hell happened yesterday? And where do we start from this? Is this strictly defense, or is this offense that also deserve some sort of a blame here?
There is a mindset that's been going through this team for quite some time that they just can't handle any adversity. And we saw it the other night against the Minnesota Vikings, where a couple of penalties go against us, and bad calls or not. And I don't want to say that the referees cost us. They just can't rebound from that. And we saw it yesterday, at the end of the first half with Isaac Tesla.
Yeah.
When things like that happen, the Bears have no ability to just overcome that and put it behind them or anything of that nature. And so I think this is going to be one of the biggest struggles for Ben Johnson moving forward, is trying to identify who on this team is a dog, who is somebody in there that's willing to fight and willing to get after it. And there's some guys, and I will say some of my favorite players, guys who I admired before they came to Chicago, really admired them when they were in Chicago. But you start looking at them now, and I'm like, who are some of these guys in trouble? Are they the right type of leaders? Are they the dudes that we need? And I think that right now we're going through a discovery process with this team, and I think Ben Johnson is trying to feel out who his guys are, who his guys are not. There was a comment right now or today where he was talking about more competition and more guys getting opportunities.
Sure.
You don't have to. You know who he's talking about. So I think we're going to end up seeing, I think the way that the roster looks in week 10 is going to be much different than what we're seeing right now. And I think that we just got to be patient throughout this period and know that some bigger fixes are in need of this team.
Yeah. The Bears have been such a organization that's been known for an ineptitude and incompetence from top to bottom, unfortunately, and that's kind of permeated all the way down to the players and who they are. And I totally agree. I think the way the Bears folded in the second half like a cheap chair was so embarrassing. And I think that it's now we've gotten to a point that where we have to start discussing which players are in trouble of losing their jobs. Unfortunately, I understand that 2025 is a evaluation period for Ben Johnson and his coaching staff, where they kind of have to build the team from ground up, not necessarily tore it down and from the studs, but just find who are dogs, like you said, as well as who are leaders on this organization. Some of the players that I think on Twitter that has been mentioning about competition, and there are some things that they didn't like, is probably the most top, not the at the top of the food chain, I should say, is wide receiver DJ Moore. He ran a wrong route. I think he got called out on week 1 on the touchdown pass that should have been caught, but instead he changed his route and so forth. Is DJ Moore in trouble in your opinion, or is there a couple of guys you think there are some guys who are really have to fight for their jobs moving forward?
I think that when you're in this stage of a season or a rebuild, if you want to call it a rebuild or anything like that, I think that everything is on the table. And I think that we have our own observations of who it could be without actually talking to Ben Johnson personally, without being in the room. Um, I can't say who it is for 100% certainty.
It's all speculation at this point.
Yeah, we're speculating. We don't know. We don't know what goes on behind the scenes. We don't know who the most respected guys in the locker room. We aren't in the locker room, but what you can see are the results on the field, and in a very tangible way of as you explained it, just folding, just like going away, like you see it, and you see the air coming out of a room very easily. And as somebody who coaches, why I know that I coach on the youth level, it's very difficult sometimes. Like you really got to be careful with the way that with the way you approach people, the way people respond, how your own energy is, and things of that nature. So for me, again, I don't want to publicly call anybody out because I don't think that's fair. Because again, unless you are actually in the room, but the NFL is still a results based operation, and the results right now suck. Like it's bad, and it's one of those things too that had they been able to hold on against Minnesota, I think we'd probably be having a little bit of a different conversation. I think that we'd be like, you know what, that was Detroit's Super Bowl, but that was an opportunity for the Bears to strike back. I mean, it really was. Like let's be perfectly truthful. Like the Lions, if you listen to them during the offseason, like they were playing at Green Bay in week 1, and they could not stop talking about the Bears in week 2. To the point like that was one of the easiest games to call of all time. If there was a game like everybody does survivor pools or things like that, I'm like, why is nobody picking Green Bay? There is no way Detroit is going to win that game. And I think people are, saving Green Bay for another time or something like that. But still, I looked at that and I'm like, that is the most obvious game of all time. Like if I was in a survivor pool last week, going with the Packers was the easiest call because they were looking ahead to this game, and it showed. And they put everything out there. And let's see how the Lions respond this week. I forget who they're playing in week 3, but we'll see. Oh, wait, they're playing somebody. God, I know who they're playing. They're playing somebody with a quarterback who's untested. Is it the Colts? No, it's the Bengals. So they get the Bengals without Joe Burrow. So they'll probably end up winning.
The Vikings are. I believe Vikings are.
Oh, the Vikings are. That's right. Detroit gets them in a couple of weeks. We'll see what happens. But that was clearly a game where they were going to go all out. We were going to get their best shot, and we did not deliver. And I thought too, like and I said this on my own show, like I was coming back from AYSO picture day, and I was like, I looked at my score. It was 7-7. I'm like, all right, that's cool. We scored. We must have scored on our first drive, which I'm very, very encouraged by the fact that we've been scoring on our first drive. Like that to me is something important. People are like, well, of course you are. Those are the plays that you're scripting. It's like, bro, we didn't score in a first drive at all last year. It is actually something different to go out there and actually score on a first drive. So that was very impactful to me. I was very happy to see that. So that was exciting. And then the bottom kind of fell out. Like again, like they get a penalty, and I think I've heard Kurt Warner talking about this, where it's like, the odds of scoring on a drive, when you have a penalty, go down immediately. Like they go down immensely. But I think too, like it's almost automatic. Like if we get a penalty, we're done. The drive's over. We got to start getting up. We got to start getting over that. That's something that we can't have each and every week. If that's the way that we're going to play, we might as well give it up. We might as well just not move forward. But they got to do a lot better job at that. They got to do a lot better job of overcoming their mistakes. And how about this? How about just not having a mistake? Let's just don't commit the mistakes to start with. Let's try to clean all that up instead of going out there and doing what we've been doing for the first couple of weeks.
I mean, I'm tired of seeing 2nd and 25 or 2nd and 32, 3rd and 20s, and all that kind of nonsense. You can't overcome that kind of stupidity, no matter who you are, or even, Pat Mahomes or Tom Brady, prime Tom Brady at quarterback. You can't overcome those things, unfortunately, because not many teams can, gain 20, 30 yards, in their back pocket. By the way, the Lions are actually playing the Ravens next Monday.
There it is. All right.
Yeah, the Lions
we'll see.
The Ravens. This is going to be a very interesting test for the Lions against the perennial AFC
E-
powerhouse.
Even the NFL schedule makers knew it was going to be a big game for the Lions, and they gave them a Monday night game following their game against Chicago. They were doing that on purpose. They were like, the Lions will need an extra game because they're going to go all out against Ben Johnson. I mean, very, very well constructed by the NFL right there.
Mm-hmm. So Caleb was at least, the least of the problems yesterday in that debacle, except for that interception that he threw unfortunately, on 2nd and 32. He was looking at Zacchaeus. He overthrew it, and it was picked up by Kirby Joseph, unfortunately. He did show some nice progression, I think, from week 1 where he was, he completely regressed as the game went on against the Vikings. Whereas, he started off very strong, and then the penalties and the sacks just kind of bogged down. He got pulled off in the 4th quarter when it was completely out of the game was already out of hand, and didn't want him taking more hits and punishments. Are you happy with the progression that Caleb made this week? And what do you want to see from him moving forward? Because there are still some questions about his deep ball accuracies and stuff like that.
Actually, I thought his deep ball accuracy improved a little bit. Like, he looked better throwing the ball down the field. And so I'm glad that they pulled him out, because remember last year in Arizona when we were getting smoked, and Eberflus is out there like, let's get him some more reps. Like, he's got plenty of reps. We're good. So I was happy to see that they didn't go back to that. I think overall he did pretty well. The interception was terrible, and this, you got to hold him accountable too. Yeah. I think a lot of it, this is one thing that I believe stems from Ben Johnson constantly going for it on 4th down. Right. Is that you start to put your team into panic mode. Like, I felt like in week 1, we should have kicked the field goal. Last night, yesterday, you should have just wore it. Like, it's so, like, you're getting goaded into doing something. All the Lions fans had the 3 had the 3 signs out for 3 and out. And it was a disappointment, because in that moment, you really didn't want to go 3 and out. And I think that we had, what was it? It was 2nd and 1. Yeah. And then it was 2nd and 1. And that's why you went on tilt. If you don't get a yard in the first 2 plays, then you just got to wear it and you got to punt it. Obviously, the Bears survived in that instance because the Lions missed a field goal, but you're setting a precedent right there of like, now we're gripping a little bit. It's kind of like when you're playing golf and somebody in your foursome is gripping and like doing a lot of risky things and going crazy, and it like that vibe kind of carries over to you. Caleb got, and it rubs off on Caleb obviously in a negative way, right, where he tried to make a play when he shouldn't have. Like, you guys just need to learn how to deal with it. And I know the defense was not playing very well, but at the same time, you got to learn how to deal with it and go through that kind of stuff. Which, again, I think these are things that are going to be cleaned up. I know that I tweeted out earlier today sarcastically that everybody should go into panic mode, but I'm not going to panic, but I just got to be more realistic. And I always give the Bears the benefit of the doubt. And people are like, why do you do that? And it's like, I don't know. I always give my children the benefit of the doubt too. Like, that's just the person that I am. Like, I'm always going to try to believe in the best for my kids. And so it gets personal with me with the Bears. So I gave them the benefit of the doubt, and it's not worked out. They have not rewarded my faith, but I still love them. Yeah. My kids will do that too. Like that, I still love them, but there are times they do not reward my faith. But gonna let that. Yeah. We'll see what happens. It's just, you got to go through these growing pains, and we played a team. I understand what Minnesota's result was last night. Yeah. But you went against a team that had 14 wins the previous season in a preordained infrastructure. You went up against the Lions last year, or who was the number 1 seed last year. Right. Tough draw right out of the gate. So Dallas, who struggled with the Giants this week. Yes. That'll be an interesting test. That'll be a nice barometer to see where we stand against the rest of the NFC. Right.
And they got to flush everything out of their system and their memories of yesterday quickly, because, the whole country will be watching you. And if you come out slow and then give up 40 or even close to what you gave up, to the, similar points as against the Cowboys. There's really not much hope for the rest of the way, and certainly fans are going to be looking to maybe adjust their expectations, from maybe 9 or 10 wins at most to maybe like 7 or 6 wins, or even, God forbid, 5 wins. Should the fans
Yeah.
adjust their expectations, regardless after an 0-2 start, or do you feel like, this is what the Bears are? It will take time to, fix everything, much like what happened with Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions when he took over.
It's one of the things I asked everybody last night. I said, what did you think the Bears record was going to be after 2 weeks? And I think most people thought they would be 1-1. I think a lot of people are like, yeah, we'll probably lose to Detroit.
Yeah.
Were we going to lose that bad? Were we going to get embarrassed? No, but I think a lot of people figured that we were going to end up losing that game in Detroit. So honestly, if you thought we were going to win 11 games or 10 games, most of you had them going 1-1 to start the season. Yeah. So you're one game off the pace, and there are other opportunities to go out there and pick up some wins where maybe you didn't expect it. So sure. I think that Dallas traditionally has not played well in Chicago, so there's opportunity there. They come out to Las Vegas. We're going to get a good opportunity to see what Las Vegas is all about this evening and going up against the San Diego Chargers. Yes. So for me, this is going to be these next 2 weeks will be very telling. Then they go into the bye week. So,
right.
I'm going to keep the faith again. They don't deserve it. They don't deserve my love right now, but they're going to get it because it's unconditional. So it is just one of those things. So I'm not going to back off of it because you know what? It takes a couple of breaks to build some momentum. And if they can get some momentum going, then who knows what can happen. So I choose to believe in the positivity here, and I'm gonna go with that.
Mm-hmm. I think after what happened yesterday, you mentioned about players not having the mental fortitude and the issues with discipline came into light, and of course the general manager Ryan Poles is the one who is in charge of drafting and signing these players that he has put together. And we quickly find out that, Ben Johnson can't work magic with the players that he has in his arsenal. And this year's draft picks has yet to make any meaningful contribution. We had Ozzie Trapello and Shamar Turner both made inactive, which obviously is a poor reflection on the man who drafted it. That is Ryan Poles. Where are you on Ryan Poles right now? And do you think that even with the extension, he deserves some sort of I don't know if he will be fired, but do you think like there should be some heat on Ryan Poles and the way he has assembled his team?
When he gets kicked upstairs and he's like, oh, he's going to be put in charge of the stadium and somebody else is going to be a pro player personnel guy. We'll see what happens with this team. Obviously, we had thought that like Ian Cunningham was going to leave for other jobs and we were going to have this great staff, but like, you know what? Like there have been some concerns with the players that he's brought in, like some players that he's drafted, and not that you have to hit on every pick or anything like that. But, again, it's difficult because with Ozzie Trapello, we don't really need him to start. We brought in 3 offensive linemen during the free agency period. Darnell Wright is going to be locked into his spot, and Braxton Jones right now is competing as currently the starting left tackle. So it doesn't bother me, but Turner's a little bit more. I don't know. That one seems like, why do we have so much? Like I watched the team. It doesn't feel like we have enough depth that we should be sitting our second round draft pick. So that is a little troubling. At some point, it does need to be addressed, regardless of the extension or not. He won't be fired, but if he gets reassigned within the organization, he might resign himself or something like that. But it is a troubling thing, a troubling precedent, and like the finesse just to get that number 1 pick. To go out there, and there was some good fortune there too, because you ended up, you ended up with with a team that ended up giving us the number 1 pick.
Right.
Still, you got to make those picks count. And I like Darnell Wright, and I like Roma Dunze. Roma Dunze, like everybody.
Unfortunately, seems like playing out of his starting position right now with his terrible performance yesterday. That's one of the picks.
Yeah, he's been bad. He's been really terrible, and we had high hopes for him. We thought that Al Harris was going to come in and kind of help shore that up and kind of get him playing. Again, another player that we were given the benefit of the doubt to, because we invested a lot of draft capital, a high draft pick in there, and it hasn't been working out. So some of these guys, it's up to them to go ahead and step up, and it's whether they can do it or not, but they need to go out there and step it up.
Absolutely. Again, this is an evaluation year, and Ben Johnson and his staff are quietly making assessment of these players, whether it was drafted by him or by overwhelming majority of them were drafted and signed when Matt Eberflus was still the head coach. So all the guys, they have to really have their attitude checked and put their egos in place and just really go out there and perform at a high level that they're expected to be. So hopefully we don't have to deal with this type of blowouts on a frequent basis. But so the issue with the players that are being made inactive, I don't know if you can kind of help me and help us understand. Obviously it's a coach's decision to make those players inactive. But when you have 2 high picks being made inactive, and with the Ben Johnson coming in and working side by side with Ryan Poles, do you think that it was Ryan Poles who made those decisions to draft Torpello and Turner, or do you feel like Ben Johnson and his staff has some sort of an idea like, hey, we want these players and can you get these guys and so forth? How does this work, internally?
Well, you see, when the draft pick for Luther Burden was made, how much influence Antoine Randall L had in changing that room. And so for a lot of these picks, there will be somebody that goes to the mat for them, somebody who really believes in them. And honestly, like with somebody like Ozzy Trapillo, I'm not as concerned about it because there is an adequate player starting above him. If we were signing a journeyman off the street to come in and play left tackle over Ozzy at this point, then that would be concerning. That's where I would have some questions about what was going on. So for me, I'm less concerned about that because I do believe that some of these guys are who fit the culture, who they want to get better, and he's a developing player. And is he going to develop into a right tackle? Is he going to play left tackle? What is his ultimate plan? That part I can't speak to. I would love to know. I think that's something that they've kind of kept to themselves, and who knows what they're doing with him. But I'm not overly concerned about it because they have capable players in front of them. So I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. And we see it too. Like, listen, some other players, at other positions get brought in. There's somebody above them, and they just got to wait their turn and work hard and earn their opportunities. There's going to be a point of this season where Ozzy Trapillo is going to get on the field, and our hope is that he's going to be prepared and ready to go. So I'm more concerned about that as opposed to whether he was designated as active or inactive in week 2.
Colston Loveland pick also kind of garnered a lot of interesting reaction back in April when he was picked, with the shoulder injuries and all of that. So far, he's only had 1 catch or 1 actions as of right now. We know Ben Johnson likes to run 12 personnel, 1 running back and 2 tight ends with Cole Kmet. Caleb back in the USC, he's not really used to throwing balls to tight ends. I think he was mostly out of like a shotgun and then throwing the balls to his receivers more or less. Do you feel like Ben Johnson has to kind of install, drilled into Caleb's mind about maybe using tight end more, or is that something that Ben Johnson has to, make system work or adjust the personnel to his advantage or something like that?
Yeah, it's week 2, and we're still trying to work these guys in and figure out where all the pieces go and where they align. And honestly, everybody, and I know that we've been spoiled in recent years by guys like Brock Bowers and Trey Benson coming in and immediately making an impact. Even Tyler Warren has done a really nice job.
Sam Laporta as well.
Sam Laporta, So a lot of those guys, you can't compare every situation and expect it to be identical. So for me, it's just one of those things that I hope, and this again might be something that we address in the next couple of weeks, depending on if there are some personnel moves or not. It's one of the things talking about competition.
Sure.
One of the things that Ben Johnson is looking at is what people are doing when they don't have the ball. One of his big mantras coming into this season was no block, no rock. And if you really want to impress this coach, you got to go out there and be doing the little things when the ball's not necessarily coming your way. So again, it's way too early to make an evaluation on these draft picks, especially with somebody like Colston Loveland. I still believe in the pick. I still like the pick. So I'm gonna let this play out and see how it goes. But at the same time, I know that our instant gratification, we want this thing to happen immediately. I'm just not sure that's going to be the case.
That's totally understandable. A couple more minutes with Adam Rank from the NFL Network joining us on the Double 18 podcast live stream. Adam is going back to work in a few more minutes, so we thank Adam for joining us in his busy schedule. Let's look at let's do some quick lightning round questions. I'm going to throw some Q&A. You let me know if it's true or false. Will Caleb still go over 4,000 yards in your opinion this year?
I never thought he was going to anyway, so I'm going to say that's false. I didn't think he would. I thought that 4,000 yards, that's a little much. And I know it's something that people keep harping on. I want him to do it because I want to stop hearing about it. But I don't think that was I just didn't think that was a good goal to have coming into this season anyways. And I really don't want it to come down to 4,000 yards. What I want to see is him improve each and every week. And so if he can continue to do that and continue, he's had over 200 yards in back-to-back weeks. Let's see if he can continue to grow as a quarterback. That to me is the most important thing.
If healthy, should Kyler Gordon start outside in place of Jalen Johnson? Or do you think the Bears will probably have to go get a cornerback in the trade market?
I'd like Kyler Gordon as a nickel corner, as a slot corner. I think with the evolution of the NFL over the last number of years is that NFL teams have exploited mismatches in the slot. So if you have a slot corner who excels in the slot, you don't mess around with him, you leave him there.
Well, DeAndre Swift will still be a starting running back moving forward, or do you feel like Kyle Monangai will be the starter as soon as this week, in your opinion?
No, I'm still a big believer in DeAndre Swift. I think that the Bears have to do a better job of establishing the run. And I know that Kenny Clark is now in Green Bay, and the Cowboys did okay. Cowboys' biggest issue on Sunday was against the pass, where Russell Wilson was just sitting there and lobbing up passes to Malik Neighbors. So I truly believe, it was amazing. Honestly, it was amazing. So I honestly believe there is going to be a real opportunity for the receiving game to get going. But Ben's offense is predicated on running the football. I still believe in DeAndre Swift, and I still think he's going to end up making an impact for this team.
Is signing of Jake Moody to the practice squad a message to Cairo Santos, or do you feel like Santos will still have the job by the end of the year?
I think it goes to what Ben Johnson was talking about today, is that there's going to be a competition all the way around, that everybody's going to be held accountable. And if you're not able to go out there and do your job, they are going to bring in competition to help improve the situation. So you either do well or expect to be challenged for your spot. So I kind of like the move. I expect Cairo to be the kicker. I think he'll rise to the occasion, but I did like the move to go out there and get Jake Moody.
Well, the Bears will have any defensive linemen with double-digit sacks, or do you feel like that's not going to happen this year?
That's a false. I don't know who's going to get the sacks, and I think it's, Montez Sweat was so good when he first arrived from Washington, but we just haven't seen that player. And so I would love for him to return. And I'm hopeful that Dennis Allen's going to put this together. I know everybody's, obviously the defense was exposed on Sunday, but I still believe that Dennis Allen can get this team cooking.
Mm-hmm. I hope so. This upcoming game is as big as a game for, not just for the players, but for the coaches like Dennis Allen, because, no one's immune from, the debacle that we witnessed yesterday. And I think, this is going to be a huge game for Dennis Allen himself as well.
Yeah.
Do you think Rome Odunze will still be the leading receiver by the end of the year?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think this switch is if it hasn't been completed by now, it should be considered done. Rome Odunze is the number one receiver for the Chicago Bears. I truly believe that.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's see. Regarding the look at the NFL around the league yesterday, is there anything that kind of stood out to you the first 2 weeks so far? AFC, NFC players, positions, anything in particular that kind of stood out to you first 2 weeks?
I thought that Daniel Jones has been a pleasant surprise for the Indianapolis Colts. I think a lot of people were expecting to be able to stream the Colts defense and stuff like that. I think that's been amazing. I think the Baltimore Ravens have been interesting. The Buffalo Bills have gone out there. I thought that the way the Buffalo Bills handled the Jets was pretty incredible. I think that anytime that you win a big game, especially the way they did against the Ravens, I don't think enough's being made of how well they've played against them. So I thought the Bills were pretty fantastic. And you know what? Everybody wants to sit here and move on to the next hot thing. They want to talk about Micah Parsons and all the things the Packers are doing. But you know what? I don't know. The Eagles still look pretty damn good to me. So I think people are being way too dismissive of the Philadelphia Eagles. But, it's one of those things.
And finally, who is on the hotter seat right now? Is it Mike McDaniel, Drew Canales, or somebody else? Is it Mike McDaniel that's kind of like in the hot seat, driver's seat right now?
You know what? I think so. I think that losing that game to the Patriots, a team that has traditionally struggled in the heat of Miami, I think that's I think that was a tough one for them. So I think that he's definitely on the hot seat right now. We'll see how that goes. Who is going to be the first coach fired? It seems like the early edge is going to Mike McDaniel, but don't rule out Dave Canales at all.
Okay. It's unfortunately it's looking a little rough down in Carolina, but they did bounce back last year after going through quarterback changes with Dalton and Bryce Young, who actually played pretty better in the second round. Adam, thank you very much for your time. I know you got to go back to work at the studio down in LA. Thank you very much for joining me today, and I hope that hopefully I get to do this again before the end of the year, and hopefully we're talking, good things about the Chicago Bears and the improvements that they've made from the time we did, after the week 2, debacle to hopefully things are looking in the right direction. Adam, thanks for your time, and hopefully you'll be kind enough to join me once again on this live.
For sure. Yeah. Let's hopefully the next time we're talking about an amazing turnaround for the Chicago Bears. And so until that time, we're just going to keep the faith and see what happens.
Thanks for your time, and good luck with your work. And we hope to have you on again very, very soon. Take care, sir.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.